I run the information management practice at Ironside, and Amir will be doing some introductions to Alteryx itself as well as the Salt stack, doing a demo. We really like this kind of solution. It fits very well into our modern analytics framework, which you may have seen in previous Take30s, where we really want people to be able to dynamically sort of go out and have a bunch of data sources like Snowflake, where you can very quickly spin things up and sort of focus your compute on the problems that are important to you, and then do quick cleansing and transformation of that data, and then get it into analytics quickly so people can really use it and get insights out of it in an efficient manner. So we're looking forward to seeing this demo and hearing more about how we can bring these technologies together. I think with that, I will hand it over to Amir.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jeff. And hi, everyone. Again, Amir Khan, here to talk to you again around the Snowflake and Tableau integrations that Alteryx has and can provide a full end-to-end experience. So we'll touch on a few things as to why Alteryx is one of the best platforms to do that with. And then we'll get into a light demo. We will have a short time today together. So if you have more questions, we'll talk about a few resources that you can leverage as well to follow up with. So analytics for all, right? Alteryx truly believes in analytics for all. And the main reason for that is just the last couple of years that we've had, right? Organizations are leading their digital transformation initiatives well in advance of when they may have planned on it. A lot of them are starting to change the way they manage their data access, their analytics platforms, data-driven decision-making, insights, etc. It's a democratized approach now, and it has to be because of the speed with which data is being generated, the adaptations that are having to be made with the economy, geopolitical considerations, et cetera, et cetera. There's just a lot out there, right? When we think about analytics for all, it sounds lofty. It's one of those things where not everyone may have the right skill sets, or perhaps just not an opportunity. We're so inundated with these meetings. 4 E's essentially cover how Alteryx can help bridge these gaps. First is easy, right? Make analytics easier. And that's really a driving force behind all of the innovation that we've had over the last couple of months and years, and how we've partnered with different technology partners and alliances to provide our users, our joint customers, with a truly fluid end user experience. Everything, right? From the actual data acquisition piece to the preparation of the data to advanced analytics to publishing that data, making it consumable for end users, that's all part of the process, and make it available everywhere. So a lot of our cloud platforms that we partner with, like Snowflake, Tableau, Alteryx is now in the cloud. The cloud is truly making it accessible for everyone as well. And lastly, no matter what your skill set is, and we'll talk about who Alteryx is for and how it plays with the Salt stack, whether you're an advanced user, intermediate, etc., in any department, any industry, Alteryx can help bridge that gap for you and truly make a really functional use of this particular technology stack. Now, just to key in a little bit deeper, right? I'll call your attention to a few use cases and actual proven value when you take and combine an automation tech stack that makes sense for the business at a level that's consumable for any skill set, really. What we're looking at is IQVIA, for example, at the bottom there. They went through, they're a clinical research company. They've gone through a couple of different studies and on how they can start to do things better within their organization, with their research facilities, their data and technology facilities, and faculties, et cetera. And we've seen from them shared to us, right, and collectively the entire stack between Snowflake, Tableau, and other automation technology vendors, that after 6 months of implementing this particular project, they were able to receive realize a 40% net annual savings. And that was just in a 6-month period of time. And they were able to automate over 100 different processes within their work streams to really make that truly valuable impact to the business. So these are the types of outcomes and achievements you can expect to see when you're thinking about how can I leverage multiple pieces of technology together to start to make true impact. Now, when we think analytics for all, right, we have a couple of different personas, a couple of different deployment methodologies in terms of how these tech stacks marry together. And this is really just an overview of how Alteryx can be that middle layer to start to provide you with access to all of these different resources that you may already have embedded within your organizations or your businesses. So the Alteryx platform serves the personas of data engineers, ITs, analysts, and business users, and makes it, again, easy and accessible for everyone to be able to tap into that data. So no matter where your data resides, you have the ability to take it through via data connectors, via ODBC, drivers, API connections, on-prem, hybrid, cloud, provide your data and your analysts within your organizations an ability to schedule, make sure it's governed so IT doesn't slap you on the wrist. Put in some AI into that and make it accessible for someone who doesn't necessarily have a data science background. And then output that to wherever you need that data or insight to be consumed. So again, along the left-hand side, you'll see that you have your cloud data warehouses, your RPA, Snowflake being in particular there. We're an elite partner of theirs as well. So you'll see a lot of great integrations coming up, as well as the output side where Tableau, again, a key partner. And we can visualize this data. And the key here is that it's automation, meaning that once we set this up the first time, all of that business logic is saved. So that process can now be fully end to end out of your hair, right? And you have the ability to just start doing what you were practically trying to do with your data in the first place. Now, again, when we talk about everyone and everywhere, right? All kinds of lines of businesses leverage a stack like this, whether you're in marketing, professional services, financial services, and again, at any line of business or vertical, when you think about that particular orientation. So call center analytics, capacity planning, and supply chain, it's really a wide variety. And you have tons of examples and use cases available to you in our community. So after today's session, if you have more questions around, all right, well, how does this technology actually tie together? You can leverage our community. There's over 300,000 active users, folks and users posting questions, and average response time is something crazy like 4 hours. So if you do have questions, but there's tons of free learning on there, webinars, academy trainings, things that'll allow you to go through the process of actually upskilling and understanding how these technologies work together. And Alteryx also provides 2 starter kits that are available as well. So if you decide to go through and get an Alteryx trial, or if you already have an Alteryx license, you can go to the downloads page and you can download a starter kit specifically for Snowflake, and then again, specifically for Tableau. So now you have 2 out of the box solutions that are meant to be a guide for you to do exactly what you're going to be seeing me do inside of the brief demo that we have queued up here today. So tons of resources at your fingertips, definitely leverage them as best you can. And what we'll do is we'll pivot over really quickly to my actual screen, and I'll show you guys what this end-to-end solution looks like inside of Alteryx. Now, we'll pause at the end for questions. So if you have any, just jot them down. Happy to cover those as needed. But again, an end-to-end solution in Alteryx when it comes to your tech stack looks just like this, right? And if you're not familiar with Alteryx Designer, I'll give you a quick tour. Across the top, you'll notice that you have all of your different automation building blocks. They're all segmented and parsed out and color coordinated for you by shape and color to give you full flexibility and a really easy way to digest what's actually happening to your data in a visual way. Connecting to data where it lives, we talked about that. We'll showcase a few pieces of that. Going through data prep and blend stages with enrichment, analytics, spatial, all kinds of things at your fingertips here. Machine learning and data science and advanced analytics are becoming more accessible as well. You can see here that we have a few building blocks that are taking advantage of really sophisticated models. And then what we all probably care about, right, at the end of the day, how do you get this information out into people's hands? How do I actionably use this data? And we'll talk about what that looks like as well. Okay, so connecting to data, right? A connection into your Snowflake environment looks just like this, right? This is our input function here. And our input function allows us to connect to a wide variety of databases, data sources, flat files, what have you. When you're thinking about all of the data that you have and the ways that you leverage your data, Let's say you do have a dashboard that you're working with and it's a Tableau file, or perhaps it's a Excel file that you need to actually massage and marinate a little bit before you can upload that back into your Snowflake environment. Connecting to a wide variety of data sources. All of these are available, and all you need to do is configure the driver. So again, we're focusing on Snowflake here today, but again, the concept, you can leverage that with any database that you may be connecting with. So here we're going to be connecting to our ODBC driver in that Snowflake environment. And you can see here that once I get that connection made, I have full visibility with our visual query builder to select the data that I want, the table that I need. I don't necessarily need to know SQL in order to pull this off. Here I can navigate along the left-hand side or right-hand side of my screen to the various tables that I have access to. And again, this is all permissions that are respected and inherited based off of the environment. If you don't have access to this data currently, you're not going to get access to it. It's not a keys to the city type of situation. But again, I've connected to my particular employee data that I'd like. I can make any kind of merge or joins and blends here on the back end as well. So if I wanted to bring in a different table and I wanted to join this particular field to that particular field, what's actually happening on the background is that the query is being written for me. So again, making it more accessible for everyone to leverage, not requiring that technical experience with SQL knowledge or or any other querying language, for example. I won't mess with that too much further, but let's say I do that again for a different table coming in from Snowflake. And maybe I have a master table that was part of my legacy system, and that lives inside of a SQL server. And you can see here that I've connected 3 different data sources all within one work stream to be able to apply my business rules and logic and start to make some real actionable insights. Now, again, going on to the data prep and blend, each of these tools that you see here are drag and drop in terms of the interface. They're all really well documented. So I have specific examples built into the platform that tell me exactly what this particular function is trying to do. Now, if I'm trying to integrate with Snowflake and understand how my data needs to be manipulated, I probably already have a good idea of what particular procedures and business rules I need to apply. And in which case, I just really need to know, how am I going to go through and actually manipulate this, configure this? So here are examples of how these particular tools can be configured. And along the left-hand side, again, no, it's no code or low code, right? In most instances for everything that you'll be doing to your data. Once I make those configuration changes to the data prep and data prep and blend stages, that business logic is saved. My data is not persisted inside of Alteryx. It's essentially just passed through. The business logic is what's actually being applied to the data and saved. So that way that automation can take place securely. I can blend my data together, right? I have 2 different data sources, and in this case, I actually have 3. So I'm going to jump over. I can join on specific fields that I know are going to be my key value pairs, and I can make sure that I'm aligning accordingly to that particular data. I have full flexibility inside of these functions as well. I can rename columns. I can go through and deselect fields that aren't relevant to my data set really quickly and rapidly. Even in the last 2 minutes that we've been speaking, you can see that we've taken data ingestion, applied some business logic and rules that would make sense for our particular use case, and then gotten to the aggregation stages where now we have a more refined data set that we can start to do some more advanced analytics on. We found, and IDC actually had this metric as well. It's interesting that most data scientists actually spent 80% of their time doing just these particular steps with their data. It's not necessarily the most functional use of such a valuable resource. But again, this is the reality. Data lives everywhere, especially when we're thinking about how we can stream data down or bulk load data inside of Snowflake. All of that starts to add time to processes, and automating even just this piece would have substantial ROI in terms of time savings for most of the customers and most of your use cases as well. In this particular scenario, what we've done is we're looking at a marketing campaign, right? And this data that we've been massaging at this point is all consumer data. And you can see here down in my results window that this data essentially provides me with a lot of demographic information, store numbers that these particular folks shop at regularly, and any other values that may be coming from a separate table, right? And here we have some spatial objects that are being created based off of the latitude and longitude. So you can start to understand your data from different perspectives. And while this may not necessarily be applicable to all your use cases, it's just an example of how Alteryx can bridge that gap between your data sources and your output inside of a visualization tool like Tableau. Now, when we've gone through this enrichment process, it's time to start thinking a little bit deeper about our data, right? Now that we've saved that 30 minutes every morning, aggregating all of our data, how do we start to push that through? How do we start to make use of it? And really what that looks like for us is leveraging something like a machine learning model, right? Or perhaps if you are a little bit more advanced and understand statistics a little bit better, you might be able to jump right into a predictive tool that doesn't necessarily provide you with a lot of the hand holding and education level experience that machine learning does. So these particular tool sets that you're seeing here can meet you at any level. If you've never done advanced analytics in your life, no problem. Our machine learning functionality will help you take your Snowflake data, find the insights you need, and apply some logic and a model that makes sense. Here, we're looking at a predictive analysis with this decision tree model. And this is what my interface looks like. I'm configuring my data, trying to find any kind of correlation, perhaps, and understanding what my data might look like and what things are aligned with one another. I have visualization reference for that. Once I build my particular model to my specificity, I get reports that show me very plain English accuracy. If I don't know what F1 score means, I could probably look that up, right? I could just come into this global search, type in score, and understand what takes place inside of that particular function. And again, completely interconnected to the community, as well as any dedicated help documentation that provides me with a little bit more context to what I'm trying to do. Now, that's fantastic. So we see from end to end, okay, we've ingested data, we've prepped and massaged it. We have it to the place where we can start running our advanced analytics and actually make some decisions there that impact the business positively. Let's push that data back out. Let's leverage the T, right, in that salt stack. So let's look at how do I push this to Tableau and make it consumable? Well, there's a couple of different ways to look at this from a perspective of output. Again, anywhere that you can take in from, Alteryx can put out too. So our output data has the same look and feel as our input data that we talked about earlier, but we also have various ways to connect data to other platforms. So whether this would be something like Tableau Server, perhaps I need this particular workflow to kick off on an automated schedule and update and stream data into my Tableau server so that when my dashboards can stay up to date. Maybe I just need a simple flat file. Maybe I just need a simple PDF output or a hyper file that I can pass on to other analysts that they can start to work with. Or maybe I need something even simpler. Maybe I just need, hey, just give me a PDF or a PowerPoint presentation or even a flat Excel file. All of these particular capabilities are possible. And what that really means for us is that, all right, well, we've dedicated an output to Tableau, or perhaps we're publishing to Tableau server. Now, my data can live in a refreshed moment on an automated schedule from end to end, from ingestion all the way out to output, and my dashboards can update regularly and frequently. So here, I'm seeing, okay, my campaign analysis shows me that these particular zip codes are probably the highest ones that we want to target. So instead of analyzing the results of this campaign and sort of going down the model of, well, okay, well, we think this is a key factor. We think the revenue or the distance traveled, et cetera. What we've been able to identify in this particular use case is, again, hey, most of our responders that said, yes, I do want to come back, or yes, I do want to participate in this, have a strong correlation to the distance in miles that they travel to get to their particular store, right? So if you eliminate outliers, those that are maybe passing through, road trip, et cetera, we can see that the majority of our yeses, right, are going to come within that 20-mile radius. So again, these are actionable insights that are now visualized with your data that lives in a warehouse like Snowflake. The advanced analytics are run. The engine itself is Alteryx, providing you with that bulk load or any other kind of manipulation to that ETL or ELT process, and then outputting that to a Tableau visualization so that way our data can actually be shared. Now, this particular solution, again, is with Salt, but we have the capability in Alteryx to provide you with that same level of detail for any other technology partner or any other vendor that you might be thinking of. And we can definitely talk about that further with Jeff. But with that, I'll pause here and we'll open it up for questions.
you talked about how data scientists spend 80% of their time doing this kind of data manipulation. We see that as well, and it's why we think getting this kind of stack right is so important, because anything you can do to let them focus more on doing the actual data science is sort of directly translates to more insights and more actionable answers for your business. So this kind of thing is super important for that reason.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And with machine learning and all of these different tool categories that you see here, right? It doesn't just start or stop at applying predictive models to your data. And again, these do have write-ups, dedicated examples to help coach you through that process. We also have the machine learning functionality that's going to give you a little bit more of that handheld experience. So that way you can start to not necessarily replicate what a true data scientist does, but again, it allows you to step by step go through the process and learn while you're doing it. So that way you have an accurate, trusted model that a data scientist would approve of, since our data science team built this. And you have all of that functionality here inside of Alteryx as a platform. You also have computer vision. So if you're working with PDFs a lot, if you're trying to scrub images and understand the differences in pixels and things of that nature, tons of great use cases there as well. So, as an example, if you have a cracked screen, you take a picture of your cracked screen, you send it to the insurance claim company. The claim company is likely running a computer vision model to test whether or not that screen is cracked. And that's an automated process. It's an actual use case that Alteryx has applied at a client. So you have lots of capabilities here built in. And for those that are of the advanced type, you also have the capability to leverage this particular type of solution in an interface functionality where you make it accessible via Alteryx server, perhaps, to end users as an analytic app. And just like we would interface with any form, all the end user would see in that instance is just, hey, select which particular region you would like to evaluate. Here's your date range. Pick your date range. What kind of output would you like? Would you like a PDF, a PowerPoint? All of those interface functionalities can be incorporated into a workflow like this, giving you even further flexibility in terms of how you start to capitalize and drive this insight further. So great call outs.
Yeah, so actually we had a question about what type of machine learning is possible with this solution. So I think you probably went through a lot of it, but maybe just go back to the more data sciencey tab and
Yeah.
talk about sort of what some of the options are in a little more detail would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have some demos of these on YouTube. So if you're curious of what each of these sections look like, you can definitely watch that there. But again, classification models or regression models, and effectively, depending on the data set, these particular tools can evaluate your data for you and tell you which particular model makes the most sense to use. So you're not necessarily floundering from the very beginning and understanding, well, what's a regression model? What's a classification model? Are there any kind of hyperparameterization techniques I can apply or modifications to the models that you have? And again, Alteryx is completely open. So if you do have the data science skill set, you can leverage the Python or R tools that are built in within the platform as well. So you can actually write your own models. You can import your own models, and Jupyter Notebook is built right into the platform. So for example, what you're looking at here on my screen is just the interface functionality for this decision tree model, right? But let's say you do have a data science team. Well, behind the skin of this one icon lives an entirely spaghetti-like workflow, right? And you're going to see some of these interface functionalities and all kinds of different things here. And I'll just zoom out really quickly without getting too confusing. But this is what lives underneath just that one particular tool. So again, you have full capability and functionality to leverage Python or R, any other data science tools, import your packages, and again, fully connected. So if you have questions about it, download the trial, come take a look at the community articles. All of that information will be there for you.
Excellent, great answer, thank you.
Yeah.
Another question we got is what makes Snowflake in particular a good source for this kind of stack and analytics?
Yeah, absolutely. So Snowflake is kind of taken the industry by storm, right? Everyone knows who Snowflake is and what Snowflake does, and accessing data in the performant fashion that they have is becoming more and more almost a necessity. right? For the way business is done these days. One of the functionalities that I think makes the most sense for using for using Snowflake when we're thinking about it from this perspective, again, the way I showed you to connect to this with the driver is great. You know, it's performant. It's essentially streaming data down. You can kind of go through the process there. But everybody knows about consumption. Everybody is mindful of how am I using my data? How am I going through the process and making sure I'm doing this in the most effective, in the most efficient way possible. We have in database functionality that makes more sense for those large bulk loads and the way that you want to manipulate data. So what you're looking at across the top right now in my banner is all of the same tools that we might do on in that ELT process, the ETL process, where we're streaming data, some data in. Maybe I want to filter that data. Perhaps I want to join that data in table with something else. Maybe I want to sample that data because it's just massive and I don't need 4 million records coming down. Not that Alteryx has any limits, but your machine might not like it. You can summarize, union, you can write back out. You have all these capabilities all within the in-database functionality. And the reason why it makes Snowflake such a great tool to use with Alteryx and output into Tableau or any other visualization platform is because you have this capability of actually processing all of this data in database before it even streams down into your Alteryx environment. So all of these little things that we talked about with some formulas and going through the process of aggregating and prepping and selecting and changing data types and things of that nature, all of this can be done inside the database and then just push that data back out. And then if you need to bulk load and do other things like that, you can stream that data back up in there. So it makes it for a fully fluid experience when you're thinking about why Alteryx and Snowflake. And we have tons of write-ups on that as well. So I encourage you to take a look at the community and just see what the other users around the world are saying. Tons of great information coming from that particular subject on our community as well.
Great, thank you. And I would add, I mean, for this kind of stack, Snowflake really gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of being very easy to, to spin up extra storage, to spin up extra compute, so that you're not, if you have a new kind of a feature request or a new data science problem, it's very easy to apply resources to it without having to do a lot of provisioning and sort of, requesting stuff and advanced work. So that kind of flexibility is super important in this kind of analytics.
Yeah, great point, Jeff.
The next question we have is about the Tableau side. So can you have Alteryx write directly into a pre-existing Tableau file?
Yeah, absolutely. So for example, in this particular workflow that we have here, you can see that my output options, I've set this Tableau hyperfile up, and let's say every time this workflow runs, I need to overwrite that existing file, or perhaps I need to append this data to this new file. And you can essentially manipulate that however you'd like. So you have full capabilities here. And again, we talked about connecting to Tableau server. If that's more your organization's approach to that, you certainly have that capability. But again, we can meet the analyst level, we can meet the IT level, we can meet the group that's managing all the dashboards, whatever the use case is and whatever the persona is, you have the capabilities here to do exactly that.
I was muted. It would be easy for, you've got analysts who are looking at Excel and every morning you're pumping in the newest data so that when they open it up, they see, sort of a current view of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, with the Alteryx server at play, it again automates that whole end to end. So you have the scheduling capability, version control, governance, all that good stuff in there. So
excellent. And then I think the last question we have time for is the Snowflake connection available out of the box with Alteryx, or do you have to download something extra to make that connection?
yeah, depending on your environment, you might want to verify the driver. But again, it's just a matter of configuring the ODBC if you're thinking about connecting from it that way. We have other ways to connect to Snowflake as well via the APIs and things of that nature. So if you're curious about it, we have bulk loaders, we have all kinds of different ways in which we can start to go through that process. So whatever makes most sense for your environment, that's definitely what we would recommend. But out of the box, Snowflake has a quick connect, so you can go through the process and configure that way.
That's great. I think we have hit the end of our time. So I want to thank everyone for coming, and hope everyone enjoyed the talk. And if there are any other questions that people have, please feel free to reach out to myself or Amir. We'll be happy to answer your questions and talk about any other problems you might have.